Me, Trishala, and you are looking at the Okakoyo cam to start us off. And again, stunning colors, and I can't wait to see who comes down to drink. We've got some Springbok already. So if this is the first time you're joining us, or maybe you just need a friendly reminder, we are live and interactive. So send through your questions and your comments, whatever you like. Tell us your thoughts. Tell us how you feel about nature. Tell us what makes you relax in nature and what can help you escape into nature. Let us know. And you can do that by heading over to our website and registering to send us your questions and your comments. I've been really enjoying spending this time with you because it's so important to facilitate connecting people to nature, and that's one of Wild Earth's missions. So maybe, again, you don't know, or maybe you just need a reminder to help us fulfill our mission of connecting people with nature. You can head over to our website and you can donate to help us with our mission. We certainly love to do it, and it's a very rewarding endeavor. If you'd like to receive some updates from us, you can also head over to our YouTube page and subscribe. And you can keep abreast of all the best wildlife content. I'm very excited to see who comes down. I know we're going to have our usual suspects, the springbok, the zebra, the wildebeest, but I do hope for some elephants today. Anyway, I know that you're looking at the Okakoyo cam and it looks wonderful, but let's go and have a look at what the weather is doing both here at Okakoyo and our other locations. Okakoyo doesn't seem to be getting a break. It's the 31 degrees Celsius temperature, or the high temperature for the day, has been consistent for the last few days that I've been with you, looking at the cams. So pretty warm, pretty warm. But slowly they're going to start to slip into winter, going to start to get drier. The wettest months at Okakoyo, and remember this is a semi-arid area, so it's not very wet anyway, but the wettest months are the very beginning of the year, so January, February. So now it's going to start to dry up even more as we enter or start to move towards winter. But that's okay because the majority of these animals are very well suited to arid and semi-arid environments. Most of the time when we start off here, there's so much traffic. But yesterday morning around this time when we started Escape to Nature at Okakoyo again, it looked very similar to this, just a few springbok around, some zebra to join in later, but not those hordes that we've been seeing previously. And like I mentioned yesterday, that might have to do with the rainfall that occurred the day before. Feeding is going to be priority, though, early in the morning before they come down to have a drink. So we can really look forward, I think, to a lot more animals coming to join us at the waterhole a little later. Hi, Catherine. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us for Escape to Nature. You're hoping to see a black rhino today. Catherine, get out of my head. I am also hoping to see a black rhino today. We have previously on this cam, so It's only a matter of time. The thing is, will we be looking at the right time? But I have high hopes too, Catherine. Team Black Rhino. I love seeing these approaching dots from the distance because it makes me feel like, oh, could it be a rhino? That would be wonderful. But we can see that those approaching dots, those animals, are in groups, which means that they're likely herd animals and black rhinos are not. Nevertheless, I have high hopes. I would love to see a black rhino today. I would love to see more than one elephant. Now, the other, was it yesterday? There was a bit of a breeze. Today it looks quite still here at Okukuyo, so let's have a bit of a look around. Often when it's quite breezy, things can get a bit shaky. So now that it's still, or at least it appears to be still, let's have a little bit of a look around. Looking at this area, you can really, I mean, we're looking at these mineral flats right now, this mineral pan, this white mineral rich clay deposits that are all over this area. And as we look out into the distance, you can actually see that it could have been an ancient lake, and it certainly was. Has that wonderful look, that kind of flatness that really only comes from water or glacial movement. The existence of animals, of flora and fauna, life itself, is dependent on the environmental factors. And as the earth changes, as different specific places start to change, but usually from big movements, so things like changes in the climate and the weather. Remember that weather is something specific to a time. So when we speak about the weather, we're talking about what it's doing today, what it's doing next week, or on the weekend. But when we talk about climate, we're talking on a really much broader sense. We're talking about what is the general climate of this area. So even though 3 days ago it was raining here at Okukoyo, it's still a semi-arid environment. So that's when we talk about climate. So climate's a really large reference, and weather is a smaller one. But things like climate really affects the environment and can change it, whether it's with erosion, huge deposits of water, reduction in water, so it becomes desert, can cause huge changes in the environment. Other things, tectonic plate movement on a much grander scale, formation of glaciers and ice sheets, things like that, that will pull water. All of those cause huge environmental changes. And in fact, the ancient lake that was once here at Etosha, that ancient lake, the water was pulled from it because of the development, tongue tied, the development of ice sheets at that time. And as that water gets pulled away, this land becomes available for growth of hugely different flora that would have existed in this area, and then bringing in the right environment for animals, and now we have this. I think it's amazing. Can you imagine all the fossils that must be in this area? Because this is all sedimentary rock. Sedimentary rocks usually associated with movement of water, oceans and lakes, rivers, etc. Ooh, fossils make me excited. Okay, let's go and have a look at the other side. If anyone is coming to say hello. Okay. So on the left there, where we were looking previously, that's quite close to the lodge. So that we don't get too much movement of large animals coming from that side, but we do from this side. So it's always a good idea to kind of swing around and to this end and see if there are any friends coming through. Not quite, but I still have a feeling that we'll be lucky today. Got some good old zebras. I finally made it after we saw them approaching from all the way down at the I was about to say the hairline, the tree line. They were once little dots, and now we can see that they are zebra. So this is quite a mixed, or at least where there's a whole lot of vegetation here, you can see it's very flat. We spoke about the salt pan, etc., etc. But where vegetation has been growing, it can kind of be a little bit mixed. Acacias, or rather Vachilias and Senegalias, no longer called acacias in southern Africa. Mopani, bits of grassland, as well as shrubs. So lots of scatterings of different types of vegetation in this area, which is actually a good thing. It's quite important. Obviously, there's fierce competition between all those different types of vegetation because each one wants to dominate. So you end up with these patches. But that's good for the animals, especially those that are mixed feeders, because when one resource, like the trees, becomes nutrient poor or dries up, then they have somewhere else to go to. Maybe then they start to go for slightly shorter shrubs closer to the ground, maybe something more herby than woody. Maybe they start to pull up bulbs and forbs. Then maybe there's some nice juicy grass. Then the grass dries up and we're back again to browsing. So for mixed feeders, this is a good environment. But just in general, being a mixed feeder, being an omnivore, those are great characteristics because they allow an animal to have a larger buffer. When an animal is highly specialized, it is very vulnerable to any changes, environmental changes. So when an animal is omnivorous or a mixed feeder, then they're a little bit more resilient to change. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. 8. It looks like 8 zebra. Let's see if we can have a tiny bit of a closer look. Can see some more coming down too, and I see a wildebeest with them. At least it looks like one. No, it's not. It's just a dark zebra, probably just a light. Pretty sure it isn't a melanistic zebra making its way down. But imagine if it was. Oh, that would have been so cool. I love seeing different color related mutations. Things are so lovely and peaceful. Now that we have some crowds coming down, sometimes there's that bit of panic, but everything's pretty peaceful for now. So let me give you a few moments to enjoy it. I wonder if you heard the zebras as they moved out of the water. Lovely, even though a little bit of panic. Oh, I wonder what happened. A little bit of panic and they left the water. I see everyone's returning now to complete their drink. Oh, hi, Janet. You'd like to know what do I look forward to on Escape to Nature every day? I I don't look forward to. Excuse me. That was me. Whoops. I don't look forward to anything specific in terms of animals or sightings, really. What I do look forward to is this dedicated time. So obviously, I'm at home. I'm not in the bush at the moment. I will be soon, which will be fun. Next week this time, I'll be traveling up to Juma. But I really enjoy this dedicated time being with wildlife, even though it's virtual, because it gives me the opportunity to learn, but also just to relax a little bit and watch them. I mean, it's the same for any time that I get to be with wildlife and to learn about them, think about them, talk about them, whether it's Escape to Nature or the sunrise or sunset safari, whatever it is. I love that it's a dedicated time. It's kind of like, um, if you take a class, if you take a yoga class or a dance class or whatever it is, that time is specifically dedicated to that activity. So it's kind of different to if you just choose to dance a little at home, if you know what I mean. That time, you going to the class, there being other people, is a very dedicated time. And that's how Escape to Nature feels for me. It feels like it's dedicated to watching wildlife in this specific way. I think that's what I like best. That looked like a very stalkerish springbok like it was trying to hide from us as it ran past. Nice. A whole lot more zebras coming down as well. I must say we haven't seen too many zebra fights, considering how many different herds meet up here. We haven't seen many fights. There was that one time we saw a little bit of bucking, but it almost looked like a female and a stallion. Maybe not two stallions fighting. When two stallions fight, we've spoken about this, it's absolutely brutal. And sometimes the mares get irritated with the stallion and they do kind of, kick up and throw their heads in his direction. I've seen that plenty of times. But you can see it's less serious than when two stallions are going at it. Hi, Catherine. You'd like to know if I have seen mountain zebras at the waterhole. No, I haven't. But I mean, I'm gonna be really nice. But considering what we can see and how well we can see with this camera, I doubt I'd be able to tell it was mountain zebra, to be very honest. But based on the what my eyes are saying to me, I don't think I've seen a mountain zebra here. But I am sure that I don't think Amakala is not with us this for Escape to Nature today. Karika is and Madikwe as well. Ralph and Karika and Lauren and Rian in Madikwe. But when Amakala is on, they will definitely be able to show you some mountain zebra. They're definitely in this area, as in Etosha. But I'm not sure if they come down here or if they're in a specific place because it can be very much like that. For example, in Amakala, they're only in one section of the reserve. So it might be the same here. And if we had to look carefully at the zebra that we're seeing now, the stripes look pretty thick and bold. The most defining feature, of course, of the mountain zebra is the fact that those stripes terminate before they reach the belly. And I think that's quite obvious to see, but like I said, it's difficult to see with this cam. I guess we could also be able to see if there were stripes on the legs, something that mountain zebras also have, that the plain zebra doesn't really have. It's much lighter on the legs. Faint stripes sometimes. Sure, we'd be able to see that, but I don't know if they're in a separate section like it is in Amakala. I will definitely keep an eye out. I find that their ears look quite different too. They look more donkey-like or bigger, sort of disproportionate also, almost compared to the plain zebra. Okay, now that's definitely a wildebeest coming down. Or am I wrong? Oh, did you see that little bit of a kick there? Good morning, Fred. Welcome and thank you for joining us. You are on the same train as me this morning. You're hoping for some elephants as well. That would be fantastic. I also really love how we get to see them from a distance, like walking through really slowly and purposefully and so relaxed. I love seeing that. We've got a bit of a problem here with the zebra. What's going on, guys? So a small foal there as well. Not very, very tiny, but still definitely a foal. Oh, good old Vildi has joined us. This always feels like a party. Like, oh, this person's arrived and that person's arrived. Oh, they're leaving already. At least that's how I feel.
On April 27th, Wild Earth will be celebrating a very special birthday. It's our Sweet 16. We want to celebrate you, our viewers who have been with us every step of the way.
I just appreciate you so much.
Send in your birthday wishes so we can include you in the celebrations.
Happy birthday, Wild Earth!
Video yourself saying happy birthday to Wild Earth with a short note and share them with us on birthday at Wild Earth.
They just keep on coming. Oh, hi, Darcy Miller. Thank you for joining us. You would like to know what I'm looking most forward to when I head back to Juma? I really, really miss the hyenas, obviously. I miss the Juma clan so much. I've spent so much time with them, gotten to know them so well, and I really don't know the new cubs very well. I mean, when I met those cubs, it was June of last year. So it's almost a year that's gone by, and I don't know anything about them. They were tiny, tiny, tiny. I mean, remember, Indabele's cubs were so, so small. So small. And I don't know, I'm not even sure I'd be able to ID them. But I'm mostly looking forward to seeing the hyenas that I'm used to. June, Swazi, Indabele, sure Ngwazi died. Now that I think about it. Even some of the clan males, Comet. Be nice to see them all. And and of course, Corky. Gosh, love Corks. I'd love to see all of the hyenas. I miss them so much. But the other two things I really miss is the environment at Juma. It's just beautiful. And the vegetation. I love driving around Juma and just seeing a tree and knowing exactly what it is. Just seeing a bit of a tree, a bit of a plant, and knowing exactly what it is. I feel I know Juma so well, and I miss that familiarity. Anyway, it's not only me out helping you escape into nature or escaping into nature with you. Ralph is out in Karicha as well, and he'd like to say hello to you all.
Molweni, hello everybody, and welcome to Escape to Nature, where I'm coming to you live from the Karicha Game Reserve in the Eastern Cape. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and I'm out on the eastern side of the Karicha Game Reserve, down near to the Scotia clearings, and I'm just watching some of these blesbok that are seemingly sleeping in the grass. We've had quite a bit of rain this morning, and earlier on I had a similar situation with some ostriches. So it seems like everybody's just having a bit of a lazy morning. But you'll see with the blesbok, they often do put their noses deep into the grass in an attempt to try and stop the flies from entering into their nasal cavities. It doesn't seem like the youngster has that problem just yet, as one of the safari vehicles is heading off, probably at the end of the morning game drive, taking the guests up to the lodge, main lodge, for breakfast. And well, I'm sure it's breakfast time in many parts of the world, so if it is breakfast where you are, bon appetit. See the little horns just starting to come out now on this youngster. As it grows, it will obviously then start to look more like the adult on the right, and it will also change color. It's very light colored for now. It will darken up on its body and then lighten up on its face, because you can see there it's dark down the nose, whereas where the name blesbok originates is because of that white coloration on the front of the nose, from the horns all the way down past the eyes and right down over onto the mouth. And the Afrikaans bles, it can mean bald, but also means blaze, and that's why they call them, they've got the blaze on their face. It's very brilliant white that they have there, so very easy to identify a blesbok. But when they're young, as you can see with this little one on the left, it's actually black. So it completely changes color. That lightens, and then you see the fawny color on the rest of the body changes more to a dark brown. And then those horns will curl outwards and upwards. as it grows. So this baby, probably born at the end of last year, so it is a few months old. So it's done pretty well and managed to survive this far. So it should be well on its way to becoming an adult. It will take the better parts of over a year to fully fill out and grow those horns, even up to about 2. Quite a few birds out now that the sun has come out. There's no wind to speak of, so lots of birds have been out and about and calling. Crowned lapwings in their numbers, as well as black-winged lapwings. There was a flock of both, and it seemed like the crowned lapwings were actually chasing the black-winged lapwings in their groups. They do compete for a similar environment. You don't often get to see the black-winged lapwing, with the crowned lapwing a lot more common. A similar call, but the crowned lapwing is a lot louder, and so the black-winged lapwing, similar sort of call, but it's a little bit more discreet and not as noisy as the common kivit, as we call them, the crowned lapwing. The youngster just getting up now. Does look rather sleepy. Scratching his face with his back feet, one side and the other. I wonder if it's can also be that preorbital gland that becomes a little bit itchy just below the eye. And Blesbok had a very prominent preorbital gland. They use that to mark on grass stalks and twigs, and they do say that it is believed that it is quite pleasurable for the animal when they do rub their faces utilizing that orbital gland, preorbital gland. But it does leave pheromones, hormones and smells, so for olfactory communication between individuals. Blesbok are territorial, so males will start middens, where they will also sleep in that midden as well, and really covering themselves with their smell. Little ones had too much. Bedding down. Let's just zoom out. You'll see there's quite a few other Blesbok here as well. There's quite a big group of them. There's some of the old prickly pear, exotic. They're all in fruit now, are the prickly pears. Connor, I've got to think about that question. What's the most incredible thing I've seen at the Scotia Dam? The Scotia Dam is just off there in the distance. You can see that Scotia tree on the right hand side, and it's just down there. I'll probably go off over there as the day warms up, because then the animals will be coming down to drink. There were none there early this morning, so that's why I came here, because it was raining. And yeah, there's been a few things. I must say, the little grebes that were nesting, and they had their little chicks that they were carrying on their back. I haven't spent time with birds. You know, we've seen that, you know, but just briefly on different occasions. But for me to be able to sit at that waterhole for hours on end and watch those little grebes from starting to build the nest to having eggs in the nest and covering it up with moss and so on whenever they left the nest to forage, and then eventually with the chicks hatched, and then they were being transported on the adults' backs. That was quite special. I've seen a lot of spoonbills coming down and trying to eat frogs. I think that Scotia Dam is full of platanas, or the Latin name is Xenopus gilli. They're actually frogs that never leave the water. They stay in the water all the time, as opposed to, you know, most of your frogs and toads that stay on the edges and so on. They're a fully aquatic frog. But I think it's full of them in there, and a lot of the birds, the herons and the cormorants, were feeding a lot on them. But the spoonbills, they would catch frogs, but they wouldn't be able to swallow them. So it was always rather amusing to see them beating the frog to death, but then not being able to swallow it. And eventually the herons would come over and feed on the leftovers that the spoonbills had left. So that's been wonderful. Also, I must say, watching ostriches coming down to wallow in the water, that's something I've never seen. So when it was very hot in November, sort of end of October, November, it was extremely hot on some days, 40 degrees plus, no wind. And yeah, I saw that on a few different days. So although ostriches don't do well when it's humid and rainy, especially when it continues over a number of days, on that particular instance, it was so hot that they were actually going down to enjoy being in the water, which for me, I've never seen that before. So I must say that's probably one of the most special sightings I've had there. Also, all the warthogs, the rhino and the buffalo coming to wallow in the mud, and a bit of time sharing in the different wallows just off of the Scotia Dam. That's been lovely to see, because it depends who's there first, and then the next arrival needs to try and push the other ones off. Obviously the warthogs, they take what they can get, but between the rhino and the buffalo, there's a little bit of competition for those wallows, and so there's been a little bit of indifference between them there, and very interesting to watch who actually eventually gets dominance or maintains the position. The bull rhino is still quite a youngster. He's only about 8 years old, but he seemed to get pushed off easily out of the wallows, but Thandi, not so much. She curls her lip up. She does that very typical that lifting of the lip, and if you know rhino, then you know what I'm talking about. And she stands her ground, and she pushes the any of the other rhinos as well as the buffalo herd off. If she's in the wallow, she's in charge. So it seems like she's the boss around here. And I wouldn't mess with her, especially when she's got her lip curled up like that. Here's some keyfowling off. It's a whole flock that came through not so long ago. I think they've all headed up towards the thickets. I maybe go foraging in there. I can't quite see them in the long grass now. I can just hear them in their typical tarantal, noise that they make. And the Afrikaans name being very descriptive of that. So they've got that sort of, but then there can also be the, they've got a few different calls. Alrighty, so it's pretty quiet here with these guys all just lazing around a bit, but I'm sure as it heats up, so will the activity. I'm sure they'll head down for a drink. Not so much the blesbok, but the rest of the animals, and I'll probably follow them. And I think it's time for you to go over and back to Trish.
Back with me. And we have lots of zebra that have come down now. A whole lot. So Ralph was talking about those platana, those African clawed frogs. They're very, very interesting things to look at. And I often wonder, because they're also quite, their distribution's quite wide. And I often think that perhaps one of the animals that can spook zebras and other animals while they're drinking are little frogs that may be moving around. The platana is a very interesting animal. So, I mean, Ralph said to you what a platana is. It's the African clawed frog, the Xenopus genus. But it was actually the first mainstream pregnancy test. That sounds weird, and it's because it is weird. It was called the Hogbin test. And what doctors would do was they would collect the urine of a woman who wants to check if she's pregnant, and then inject it into the skin of a female platana. And then they would wait. And if she starts to produce eggs, then you could you could assume that the female from which you took the urine was indeed pregnant. It's amazing how these things work, because essentially it's all related to the hormones. So the hormones that are present in the urine of a pregnant female human are the same hormones that trigger egg production or egg release in the platana frog. How does one figure that out? Well, who knows? There's so many experiments and so much information where I think, how did one figure that out? I think this was done in the 30s, something like that, where it was a little bit... There were fewer rules that way. But even still, without that kind of investigation, we would never have known this information. I love those little tidbits of random, absolutely random information of things that work. Who would have thought? So many coming down here, I can hardly count them. Maybe about 40 I can see all together. Let's move a little bit to the right there. Oh my goodness. Lots and lots and lots of zebra coming through. Now to the left, near the pan, or near the water hole, where we can see them drinking, some are venturing quite far in. Again, this is a product of there being so many other animals around, so it feels quite safe. But I feel like somebody's going to get spooked soon, and that's going to cause some chaos. I would hate to say that I'm waiting for someone to get spooked, but I think it's just a matter of time because they're venturing further and further and further into the water as they get more and more comfortable. Let's move a little bit further towards the water hole. Everyone's keeping their cool. There was a little bit of a panic there. Well, not exactly a panic, but some wild movements. But everyone kept their cool. It's all about the reaction of others. If the one right next to you is reacting crazily to some disturbance, but the others are very calm, then you might think, oh, maybe there's nothing wrong. But as soon as there's this cascading effect, then there's a huge panic and everyone's out of there. Like that. I knew it was gonna happen. See how this wildebeest didn't really care though. Zebras are used to being in groups. They're used to congregating in ways like this, specifically around resources or following resources. So they've gotten used to this herd mentality, and they're really on their own. If they're ever on their own, really it's a stallion that's been kicked out of his natal herd and is trying to find females of his own. But otherwise, you're not going to see them on their own. And so they've gotten used to reacting to the others in their herd as a safety mechanism, as a way of surviving. But this wildebeest on the right that walked in as if nothing was going on while there was a bit of a panic amongst the zebras didn't really care, and that's because he's a territorial bull. Zebras do not hold territories. The territory that stallions will have are his females. That's his territory. Not a space, but those individuals, which he will defend quite brutally, as we've discussed. But for this wildebeest, the wildebeest is purely territorial in the sense that he wants a piece of ground, a piece of land that he will defend against other male wildebeests. So the only time he is in the company of others as a big mature territorial bull is only when there are other females and their offspring in the area that he will try to herd into his territory. Now they do form loose bachelor groups as well, but they will not be on their own if they're in a bachelor group, because when they're in a bachelor group, they're not feeling that territorial. So as a safety mechanism, they will move together. They will come together for those extra eyes and ears around to protect them. But when they are territorial and they are on their own and they're not allowing any other males to be around them, that's when they've got to seek the company of other animals that are not a threat to its resources. So the zebra do not want to mate with the females that he wants to mate with. So he'll hang out with other antelope so that he can still kind of be in a herd in the sense of having other individuals around and being able to be alerted to any disturbances and threats. But he's also not totally invested in it, so he's not going to react when they all have a bit of a panic around a waterhole, because he's used to looking out for himself when he's territorial. Another reason you will see zebras and wildebeest together quite often is because of the way that they feed. Both are grazers. Both will be moving through plains areas and snapping off that grass. But the wildebeest tend to follow the zebra because the zebra just kind of eat indiscriminately. Yes, they do have preferences like every grazer. But the wildebeest prefers to eat slightly shorter grass. So it tends to move through, follow other bulk grazers as they eat, because they make the grass a little bit more appropriate for the wildebeest to eat comfortably. Oh, look at him standing in front there, showing off his interestingly shaped body. So you can see that he's got that slanted back, very long, let's actually show him to you again, very long forelimbs, shorter than his back legs. Oh, and now he's gone. So that gives him that slanted back appearance. Gosh, it's like he vanished. Where'd you go? It's not under that patch of shade. Aha! Oh yes. Doing a bit of grazing. So wildebeest can travel over very long distances. They don't tire easily. And that doesn't just have to do with their respiratory system and the way in which their body is carrying blood and oxygen around the body, but it also has to do with how energy efficient their gait is. Remember that wildebeest are migratory species. They're moving long distances, like really long distances in some cases. In southern Africa, they're not really, although previously in the past, there used to be a migration in this area, or there would have been, rather, just like there is up in the Masai Mara. Because the migration happens so that animals, or it happens because animals are following rains, and rains bring abundant resources. So wildebeest did have a migration down in southern Africa, but then it kind of stopped, particularly with once a whole lot of reserves formed, but also as the environment changed even further. So they move quickly when they need to and over long distances. And that slanted back, those very long front legs, are one of the reasons that they can be that energy efficient and move for long distances without getting tired. Because of the swing, the front legs being longer, there's a nice swing as they run, and you'll kind of see it. It's the same with hyenas. And if you imagine this arc of movement, the swinging of those legs, with those long front legs, that arc makes it very energy efficient. It's kind of like when you're skipping along. You know when you get in that rhythm of skipping? And then suddenly it feels like you can fly. Or at least it does for me. It's kind of like that. You hit the sweet spot. And the movement of this arc is working for you. And that's what wildebeest and a hyena take advantage of. Anyway, the lovely Lauren is out and about in Madikwe. Let's see what she's got to offer us during Escape to Nature today.
Good afternoon, everyone, or sorry, good morning. It's not quite afternoon just yet, but we are here at Madikwe Game Reserve and we have come down to the giraffe carcass, which is not so pleasant, but it's remarkably changed since yesterday, and sadly there is just no activity whatsoever. So I, of course, am devastated. However, good morning, my name is Lauren. Rian is on camera with me, and we're not going to stay here too long. There's absolutely no point in looking at a dead giraffe. I really thought there would be more activity. There are jackals around, and it's just really stinking hot. I don't know whether everyone's just decided, it's been a busy night. There's a lot less giraffe than there was yesterday. So I don't know whether everyone's just decided to go for a sleep because it's too hot or they're too full. But I really thought we would have had some hyena action. Don't quite know why this carcass has been so quiet. Darby and I had a... Oh, better be quick, quick, quick. Look at that. Hello. How are you? It's jolly good to see you. Your belly looks like it is about to burst. Is it full of giraffe? Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better that there are at least hyenas around. Darby and I once had a buffalo carcass. It was far east, but there was just hyenas everywhere. Both species fighting, active during the day. So I'm just surprised that it's quiet, but I guess everyone's just full. I think there are 2 hyenas there.
It's a jackal. They're eating something.
Jackal. Let me just sit back down. Noel, you're saying Anne Madikwe does it again. Absolutely. Rianne and I have been sitting here quite some time and I've just been moaning and moaning and moaning as usual that there are no hyenas. Let me just see if we can go a little bit closer because I think there's a jackal right next to the hyena. I don't want to scare them, of course, but I think looking at a live animal is a lot better than looking at a dead one. I'm just going to put my sunglasses on for this because the heat is... It's phenomenal. And it's only 10:30 in the morning. So, can you work with this for now, Leon? I've got a piece of giraffe there. I don't know. I need to get my binoculars out to actually see what's going on over there.
Must be.
I think that may be a piece of giraffe. That's starting to make a lot more sense. Oh, so good to see them. I was hoping for more than one, but you can't be greedy. You are so full, my friend. I don't think it's possible for you to eat any more. Look at that waddle. It is a strange feeling seeing a hyena and not knowing where it is, I must say. It's not one of the ones I know and I think, oh, I don't know anything about you. Interesting. Okay, we're going to continue to explore this area. I think there's more going on than I first thought. And we're going to send you guys over to my dear friend Ralph.
So there's a nice big group of Nyala here that have just moved down into the plains here next to Scotia Dam. So I'm just watching them because they are moving across here quite nicely. They might come quite close. I haven't seen them just yet. I always like Nyala. They sort of remind me of Bambi, especially the females. Males looking obviously completely different. You hear the red-fronted tinkerbird off in the background, and a southern boo-boo. Also the somber green bulls chattering in between. Lots of tail swishing. You can see now as the sun starts getting up, there's a more higher prevalence of flies. So they're just trying to keep them away from the nether regions. Let's try and keep following here. Coming to do a bit of grazing, which you don't generally see all the time. They are mixed feeders, but they prefer browsing. But very, very good grazing to be had here. Righty, so I think I might get ahead of these Inyala, and I'm hoping that they're going to come down to the Scotia waterhole. Maybe I'll meet them there, and we'll go and see what else we can find. And speaking of waterholes, I think Trish is still on those dam cams.
Still on these dam cams indeed. I agree with Ralph that Nyala females do look like little Bambis. They remind me of Bambi as well, Disney film. And I'm also really happy to have seen the hyena, spotted hyena with Lauren. I know she must be so ecstatic to see a lovely spotty. And it was indeed very, very full of giraffe, like she said. And that would be lovely to see here. Some eland did come down. And I'm trying to see if there are any left over. But there were a whole lot that were down at the waterhole here at Pukoyo in Etosha National Park in Namibia. I think you can kind of see them right at the back moving off. Very difficult, obviously, but that was really nice to see a whole herd of common eland making their way down here. Another really well arid adapted species, semi-arid. There's a bit of a fight going on there. Zebra fight. So if you look, I can't really zoom in there, but just off center to the right of your screen, there's that patch of green, that patch of tree there. To the right, you can see this kind of brown, very close herd. That's the eland walking away there. Got some interesting behavior over on this side. Maybe a bit of a fight, like a proper fight. Just from that group of zebra that are now walking away from us. That's what happens when you get a whole lot of different herds coming together. It just creates opportunity for stallions to be pulling fillies from other herds, or mares even, from other herds. Most of the time it seems that when they meet up to share a resource, to congregate like this, there seems to be some kind of gentleman's code. But, I mean, temptation is always there. Things have quietened down a little bit now. Let's have a look on the other side. Remember yesterday that elephant came and snuck up on us from this end? I think I'm kind of subconsciously hoping for that. But not yet. Certainly things have picked up in terms of the amount of animals that are coming down right now. Which is nice to see. It almost seems to be the pattern now, or it has been the pattern for the last few days. For it to be super quiet once we start Escape to Nature, and then it kind of really picks up. I was really hoping that we'd be able to see those eland, but they're around, so it means that they're going to come down. If not today, then maybe tomorrow. Remember that elands are the largest antelope in the world. The one that we get here, though, the common eland, is the second largest antelope in the world, with the giant eland being obviously a little bit bigger, just a tad bigger. And a common eland, big male, big bull, can weigh almost a ton, almost 1,000 kgs. Obviously, these are exceptional specimens, weighing that much. The giant eland, just a little bit larger than that. Common eland, the one that we get here, you're going to see in sort of southern and East Africa. And then the giant eland has a much smaller distribution further north in Africa. Anyway, things are getting busy all round. It seems that things are happening at Madikwe. Let's go over and have a look.
We finally have a scavenger on the carcass. Now, if you're a little bit squeamish, maybe this sighting is not for you. Just a lone spotted hyena, really getting stuck in there. The hyena is bursting at the seams. I do not know how it is possible to get any more food in that belly. But it's nervous. I think it looks like a female. Nervous because the male lion might still be in the vicinity. It's really possible. Yeah, I can see mammary glands, definitely a female. Wow. I think I can see suckle marks too. I think this is a mama. I wonder if she needs to eat so much. supposed to be just one hyena. I believe this is the hyena that was here this morning as well. I saw a photo of her. Oh, he's really getting stuck in there. I've not yet had my breakfast, and not feeling very hungry right now. Adam, that hyena is just munching away. That's exactly what it's doing. I'm just letting you listen because the sounds right now are really incredible. I'm just letting you listen for a bit. It's quite something to see. We're definitely going to sit here for a little while longer, and we're going to send you guys over to Trish.
Welcome back to me. I cannot even count the amount of zebra that we've had come through. It's been crazy. They seem to be dominating at the moment. The eland have well and truly moved off. As much as I hope that they would come back, not right now. Still no elephants just yet. I'm actually going to give us a bit of a wider view and just have a good look around. Ooh, it is really busy, and you can really see, the last few days there was a bit of cloud cover at Okokoyo, but now very little, and it looks like the sun is beating down. Let's have a sneaky look to the right again, how I like to. No elephants coming through just yet. Let's get back in. I'm sure there's quite a lot of wonderful sounds of this movement. And I did see some birds around too, so let's take a moment to enjoy it. Animals are moving in from the right, from the top, from the left, from that tree line. So much movement. It's definitely a bit of a party going on here at the Okakoya Waterhole. Well, we at Wild Earth are also going to have a party. We are celebrating our 16th birthday. We are turning 16 and we are celebrating on the 27th of April. And part of our celebration is to be able to celebrate all of you. I mean, after all, our mission is to connect people with nature, and you are all people, and we're helping you connect with nature. And so you are supporting our mission, and you have supported us for such a long time, for 16 years, and we'd like to have you be part of our celebration. So if you would like to wish us a happy birthday, we would absolutely love that. And you can send through your videos to birthday@wildearth.tv. It's our sweet 16th. Send them through. We love to put faces to the names that we see so often across the different shows. And remember that that celebration will take place on the 27th of April. Now, I would like to know something from you all who have obviously been watching the Okakoyo Cam for much longer than I have. In fact, you'll only have me again tomorrow, and then I'm handing back to... I'm actually not sure, but I've just been filling in. But for those of you who have been watching this Okakoyo Cam quite often, I would like to know if you've seen any predators. And if so, which predators? This could be at night, this could have been when you're watching on your own, not during Escape to Nature, whatever it was. If you have seen predators at this waterhole, please let me know. Like I said, I like to thrill myself with the potential of what I could see, regardless of how improbable it may be. For me, managing expectations means I get myself super excited. So please send those comments through. I would love to know. Oh, hello, Vildi. Yes, you look fantastic. I love the color of a wildebeest's fur. It's got this sheen to it. And it looks kind of, you know, hardcore, like gunmetal gray or something. Like that's the name it should have. And they seem to have a really soft tail. Almost as if it's been straightened with a hair iron. Like it looks like hair extensions. Usually people don't really comment on their beauty because it seems to be something that is not present in people's minds when they look at a wildebeest. But I think that they are stunning animals. Yes, you. Looking up here. There's an Abdom stork there on the right, I think. It's difficult to tell, but I'm quite sure it is one. And it's all happening. It's time. It's time for the elephants to come down. It's time for the black rhino to come down, and it's time for all the predators you're going to send through in your comments to me. It's time for them to come down too. It looks like it's about to happen. Those thickets just to the right there. That's where that black rhino went and sat down the time we saw it. It wasn't during this little bit that I'm filling in for, it was previously. So I was just trying to have a good look. But so far, nothing. But I still really want to know if you've seen any predators and what they were coming down here. I can imagine it's probably very difficult for predators in this area, particularly around this pan, because there's so little cover. But at the same time, the light can play tricks on a surface like this. So it might make it even quite difficult for animals to see very well. There's so much light that's being reflected off the ground. Some insects and birds can see polarized light, which is quite important. So polarized light is just light particles that are all facing the same direction. We get like polarized glasses, sunglasses. What it does essentially is take off the glare. So when you're driving and there's a car in front of you and there's this spot of light that just hits straight into your eyes, that's polarized light. It's polarized. It's all focused in one spot and is moving in one direction and reflecting off in one direction. And we try to avoid that because all it does is kind of blind us and produces a glare. So that's why we use those glasses, to cut that glare. Some animals can... So when we see it like that, that's a very obvious way in which it's happening. But it's happening all over the place. Wherever light is reflecting off a surface in the same direction, it's visible as kind of like a column. For us, it doesn't really do that because it's either just a bright spot, so we can't see which direction it's moving in or anything like that. It only happens when it's quite obvious. But for some animals, they can detect it detect that pattern, even if it's just in a very small way. And that's important because it can help them hunt. It can help them avoid things. For example, with birds, it's important for them because as light comes through a canopy or even just a big tree, it comes through in different ways in different directions because of the gaps in the leaves. And so if they can see those pockets of light coming through, that polarized light, they can avoid it or they can use it to their advantage. But can you imagine all the different columns of polarized light that must come off this surface? I have to imagine it can be quite difficult. Particularly for those animals that are not able to see polarized light, so they can't really avoid it or know what they're up against. Instead, they just have these beams of light shining to their eyes. I think it can be difficult. Maybe predators use that to their advantage. I don't know. But at the same time, these animals are very used to this area. This area has looked this way for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. This mineral-rich white clay-like deposit. Thank you, Bush Junkie. You're the first one to send one through. You said there was a sleeping lion about 2 months ago, Bush Junkie says. Interesting. I kind of had a feeling about a lion today. That would definitely be wonderful to see. But given that it's 31, it was 31 degrees Celsius, 88 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, at Okakuyu today, I think that unless a lion is already here, it's not going to make the effort with very little cover and very little shade to make its way here during the heat of the day like this. Maybe there's one lying around, we just can't see it. So often that is the case with many predators, particularly when they're flat in the heat of the day. Very little movement. But thank you, Bush Junkie. That would be very, very nice to see. If you've ever seen a kill on this cam, that would be very interesting too. I mean, a mammal kill. Because it's so open, so little cover, so many different animals all around. I think it would be quite difficult. Difficult for predators, that is. Difficult for hunting. But at night, it's a different story. Cats have excellent night vision. Far better than any of the antelope. Far, far better. Their pupils can dilate many, many folds, so they can open up really wide, and the wider a pupil can open up, the more light can get let into the eye. And so that means the image that your brain creates will be lighter too. You have more information, more light information getting into your eye. Of course, they also have that tapetum lucidum at the back, that layer of reflective cells on the retina. But most animals have that, including herbivores. It just gives the eye a second chance to collect light information. So when we're looking like this, we don't have that reflective layer of cells behind the eye, the tapetum lucidum. You know it as eye shine. You know when some light catches your cat's eyes at night and gives you a bit of a fright? That light shining back at you, that's just your own light shining back at you, reflecting off the back of their eyes. We don't have that. So when we look out the window or anywhere, when we open our eyes during the day, light is getting into our eye and hitting the back of our eye, our retina, where those rod and cone cells sit, detecting all the fabulous different things that help us see. It does that once, and that's it. So we only get to collect light information once. But that layer of reflective cells at the back of an animal's retina, or most animals' retinas, that reflects it back out again. And it hits the eyeball or the inside of the eye and then back again against the retina. So it gives it an extra chance to collect light information. One time as the light comes straight in, and then a second time when it bounces back after reflecting off that tapetum lucidum. So that's a lot of information, light information that an animal can collect. Now that, coupled with the very wide pupil, being able to dilate their eyes widely, gives the cat really good night vision. So yesterday when Lauren and I were chatting about color perception, we are talking about cone cells. Cone cells are the ones that detect different wavelengths of light and different colors. And Lauren used the word opsins. So opsins are the chemicals that are in chromatophores and parts of your eye that are detecting light. Rod cells, those are the ones that don't really care about color. They're not tuned in to color, really, but they're tuned into picking up light and dark. So they're really, really good. Those rod cells are excellent at picking up even the slightest bit of light. So what is seemingly dark to us, our rod cells are still picking up some light. And cats have a high density of those rod cells. So their night vision is very, very good. Definitely far better than ours. Amazing, Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. Catherine, you and I were chatting a lot today. Catherine, you say that you've seen hyenas in the early mornings. when you've been here. That's wonderful. I can't tell you how excited I was when I saw Lauren's hyena there at Madikwe with that full belly and those full mammary glands hanging down. I love hyenas, absolutely love them. With hyenas, there is the potential to kind of see them milling about regardless of the temperature. Of course, they would prefer to be flat and relaxing at this time of the day. But they're difficult to predict, hyenas. Their movements are difficult to predict, they're difficult to track. Sometimes you find them in strange places. So maybe we'll see a hyena. That would be amazing. Hyenas really enjoy the water too. They love to have a bit of a swim, they play in the water. Sometimes they have a bit of a spa day. Just sit in the water. That would be great. I see kind of a wall of approaching animals. I hope that is what it is that I see. Or maybe, again, the light is just playing tricks on me. Anyway, while I try to figure out what it is that I'm looking at, Lauren is quite sure what she's got. Let's go have a look.
We have had the most wonderful elephant sighting at a pan we've never been to before. All just swimming and wallowing and doing elephant things. I mean, they are elephants after all. I'm so glad we're seeing elephants again because my first few days at Madikwe, I didn't really see any elephants. And I was sad. Madikwe, the population of elephants, as many of you know, is very high. Whether it's sustainable or unsustainable or too high or not, it's a difficult one to determine, but it is thought to be too high for the environment. Sort of over the carrying capacity, if you like. And therefore, when you're on drives in Madikwe, whether you're in the north, south, east, west, or even in the middle, you will always see elephants. If you don't, my friends, you're having a bad day. But now that we're seeing them, I'm over the moon. I think they are moving off, but at least we can spend a little bit of time with these magnificent animals. You can see that they're all wet. I don't know if they're trying to get shade, but if they are, they've chosen the wrong tree. There's always one. Oh, we're having a scratch. That's what we're doing. Also a very good idea. It's always the young boys, do you know that? It's always, the females always appear to be sensible and follow the herd. Follow mom, follow the herd. But the boys, wow, that's a different story. And off they go. Sadly, that wasn't the longest of sightings, but at least we got to see some elephant. You can hear the wildebeest. I can't see them though. Now we are going to keep bumbling. Excuse my sunglasses, everyone. I know I've got them on. The light, it's just midday heat, and it's wow, is what I can say right now. I say this every day, like a good old broken record, but it is amazing how quickly we got one on the ground here. Okay, you're not quite disappeared. I was about to go into my old speech of elephants disappear so easily into the thicket. I think that was Bo, not entirely sure though, asking about the benefit of dust bathing. It's quite simple. They can't itch and scratch like we can. They do not have fingers. So therefore, getting on the ground like this one, there's different ways to dust bathe really, but getting on the ground and really sort of scratching up and down and just giving yourself a really good itch, I believe the number one sort of reason for it is that it ultimately feels good. Now, I'm not an elephant, so I am obviously making assumptions here, but I really just think it feels good. Their skin is very, very dry, and I think it also at the same time gets rid of possibly dead skin cells, parasites, anything that is dislodged on the skin, like ticks. And when they stand up and they throw dust all over themselves, that's actually helping protect them from the sun's rays. I also think that feels good though. But what this one's doing on the ground right now, I think it's a whole lot of pleasure going on there. I think that's the primary purpose. But of course there'll be secondary purposes. Good for the skin, gets rid of dead skin cells, because elephants are really bad at actually getting rid of dead skin cells and getting anything off the skin that may be attached there. The skin actually looks like it's very wrinkly, and it is wrinkly, but it's not random wrinkles like we unfortunately develop. Oh, it is special keratinized channels. It's a network of channels that is intentionally there on the elephant. It's not random. It's not because they're getting old or because they've been spending too much time in the sun. It really is a special deep network of keratinized channels because they don't shed dead skin cells like we do. Every day we're shedding skin cells. It sounds quite gross, but we are. And that's how our skin keeps so healthy and looks so good. And the elephants can't do that. So the sort of dead skin cells build up, and it creates this sort of really deep cracks in the skin. And therefore, if you're having a good old scratch on the ground, then it probably just feels really good and gets rid of all those dead skin cells. Okay, that may be the last of them. Let's continue up this road. We're going to take a new road, see what happens. In Madikwe, roads can lead you anywhere. Luckily we have a map. We have an electronic map similar to the ones we have in Juma. They don't have that at Amakala. And luckily you can follow where you are, because otherwise you're going to get very, very lost. Nice open plains, lots of wildebeest and an elephant, a token elephant. You know, when I'm watching scenes like this unfold, I'm trying to take it all in. Not just there are wildebeest, blue wildebeest, and there is an elephant. I once learned about this sort of principle in ecology. Oh my goodness, a butterfly's just landed on my hand. Rihanna can't believe it. Oh my goodness. This never happens. It's an acria. Looks like a juvenile though. I think it's a wind. Open your wings again, beautiful. Oh my goodness. I've always waited for this moment. I can't wait to tell Davi that a butterfly actually just landed on my hand whilst live. It's got its proboscis out. I don't know if you're able to see that. It's actually probably drinking up my sweat, which is rather disgusting. I've always wished for this moment. Some of you who watch us may know that. I'm always saying one day a butterfly is going to land on me. Wow. I think it's drinking up my sweat or sun cream. Either way, none of them sound very appetizing to me, but I think it's a window acria. Possibly. I can't really see the wings, to be honest, only the under part. It's drinking. I adore butterflies. I always found, you know, people get tattoos of butterflies and, everybody loves butterflies. But actually, when I got into them and I started learning about the species, the diversity, their biology, wow, I really, really got into butterflies. I wish you could see it a little bit better. Maybe if I put it into the light, Rian. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Now what do I do? What do I talk about? Normally they flutter on by, never ever land on you. I was talking about the think like a mountain sort of principle. And it's a wonderful thing to think about when you are in nature, because really, we talk about ecology a lot. Steve loves to talk about ecology and he's so good at it. But is ecology a science, at least in the traditional sense? Is it? Because it's not a precise science and it doesn't focus on sort of listing the parts of the ecosystem, if you like, in chronological order, or even in a Linnaean way, where you I think I'm just going to have to put my hand down now. Maybe we can't go back to the scenes in front of us. Little butterfly, I think my hand's starting to shake. There we go. You can stay there all you want, though. I'm not going to complain about that. So yes, not in a traditional way. We don't sort of, when we think of science, everything is very boxed in, if you like, and we think of A plus B equals C. However, it really isn't the case like that in ecology. Ecology is all about the importance of time, movements, rhythm, sounds, smells, the invisible, the barely audible. We were talking about that yesterday. The barely detectable. We were talking about that yesterday. That is what ecology is all about. To understand an ecosystem, to understand what we're looking at, we need to take all of those things and more into consideration. Not just, we're in Madikwe, Kalahari plus sort of low-felt environment, melting pot, list of vegetation, list the animals we're seeing in front of us, including our little butterfly. And that is what we're looking at. That is the ecosystem. No, there's so much we can see. What about the groundwater? What about the chemicals in the air? What about the communication that's going on between these elephants so we can't hear? We can hear the wildebeest, yes, but I'm just looking at that wildebeest in the middle of the road. I'm not sure if you can see it, Rian, but I don't know what it's doing.
Yoga.
Yoga. Oh, it looks a bit like the downward dog, or maybe a plank. Okay, I wasn't sure. So what I'm trying to say is, ecology in that way is not really a science. You've got to look at the bigger picture. And some people actually call ecology a poetic science, rather than just a science. You're not using simple language. You've got to get into the sort of phenomenology of every single species, what they're experiencing and what is happening. So it's all about sort of thinking with nature instead of thinking about nature in terms of human needs, which we're all guilty of. And Think Like a Mountain is also a philosophy in Tai Chi. And as some of you know, I recently learned Tai Chi. I don't want to show it to you because I'm not very good, but it's a wonderful principle when referring to ecology. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit your mind by just thinking, we have an elephant here. Elephants weigh X amount. They're X amount in height. This is how much water they drink per day. This is how much food they eat per day. Excellent, yes, but there is so much going on here that you have to take into consideration, and that's what thinking like a mountain is all about. Don't forget, people, to think like a mountain. And then add in the element of how you're feeling, what you're experiencing. Don't discount that. What you're smelling. Okay, we're not really interpreting chemicals at this point in time, but we are having an experience out in nature. And I always try to remember that when I'm at a sighting. Lauren, think like a mountain. Don't just limit yourself by thinking A, B, and C. Okay, the butterfly's flown off. That was so special. Can't wait to tell everyone a butterfly landed on my hand. Maybe it knew I was thinking like a mountain. I think we can go a little bit closer, Rian, or a little bit far away. I'm just going to try and position myself out of the sun. Temperatures are soaring. Rian and I have had a great difficulty trying to position the vehicle so we're not in the sun. No, that's not really working for me. I don't know how to get myself out of the sun, but I'll survive for a little while longer. You know, sometimes I also just close my eyes. It's hard because I've got an earpiece. And when you've got an earpiece in, it literally blocks half your hearing, literally. But I try to look at what's going on around us, everything. And look at the middle of the road we're on. Can you see that little dung beetle? Ecosystems engineers, hard at work. It's all happening around us. Butterflies are fluttering. Insects are crawling. Dung beetles are rolling. Gnu's are gnuing. Birds are soaring. JD, you love my career. In another life, you want to be a naturalist in South Africa. JD, you know what? You can probably be a naturalist right now. You can be a naturalist if you want to be a naturalist. You can start learning about the environment. You can start digging, doing your own research, even if that is in your back garden, JD. If that is in your back garden, it's still nature. Yes, I don't know where you're from, but if it's not South Africa, that's okay. You can go to your woodland, you can go to the river and just start learning. And once you start learning, you'll be like, wow, I didn't know that. Or, wow, that is so cool. So JD, you can be a naturalist. You can be your own naturalist. You can do courses online. And then maybe one day, you never know, you might get over to South Africa. I've done a few courses online on things that I just really want to learn more about, and as many of you will know, I'm an avid reader. I absolutely adore reading, and I spend a lot of my time reading just to try and constantly learn more. Regurgitating the same information all the time is not really what I want to do. I've definitely shifted in my career. Of course, you have to learn the A, B's and C's. You have to have the foundation. But then once you've got the foundation, you can build whatever you want. You can go wherever you want with that foundation. And I've definitely shifted into a more sort of phenomenology, think like a mountain approach to my work as a naturalist. Sometimes we just read a textbook and we think, okay, blah, blah, blah. But there's so much more going on that we forget about. And I'm talking about phenomenology. Forget, some of you might not know what I'm talking about. That was naughty of me. But it is actually an element of philosophy. And it was proposed by a Lithuanian philosopher, I guess. And I hate saying his name live because I can never pronounce it. But it's Jakob von Ekskul. He's Lithuanian, that's all I know. And he's the one that really recognized this part of philosophy, and he called it phenomenology. And what it means is the experience and participation in and of the world around us, basically. So it's about all living beings, from us to every creature we're seeing, from the elephants to the wildebeest, the butterfly to the dung beetle, and how they perceive their world around them in relation to their own activities and goals. We only know what it's like to be us because we are us, and we can never be anything else. Any species only knows what it's like to be them. The elephant can only think like an elephant, and will only sort of perceive the world in relation to being an elephant. What does it take to be an elephant? What are the elephant's goals? What are the elephant's sort of activities? There's no point in an elephant trying to understand what it's like to be a wildebeest. It doesn't need to know. It doesn't need to be able to sort of decipher the world the way a wildebeest does. So each individual has a deeply interactive experience with their environment at any given time. Deeply interactive, and it's all different, and that's what phenomenology is all about. I mean, think about the animal kingdom. Sometimes animals use their eyes or their ears. Some have paws. Some have radar sensing like bats. Some have electroreceptors. Some have specialized muscles. Some taste with their tongue, some taste with their feet. So the animal kingdom is so diverse that each individual organism is having their own experience. And in order to understand that organism, we need to learn more about their experience and what it's like to be them. Although we'll never know, we've got to try and get into that mindset. And that's really what phenomenology is all about. And Thomas Nagel was someone that said, no matter what happens, we study bats in great depth, but we will never, ever, ever know what it's like to be a bat. We can only fathom and explain things from a human perspective. That's our limitation, and that's just the limitation of being humans. It's not a negative thing. I am hearing Ralph's voice in my ear. I don't think he can hear me, but I hear Ralph. Hi, Ralph. I don't know why. I can hear him. I can see all the wildebeest are under that tree. I'm very jealous it's not me. I wonder if we should get a little bit closer. Sorry, you can just hear Ralph. Ah, Jamie, hello wildebeest. You look very, very lovely and shaded in that tree there. I have to say you've done a very good job. Oh, look at that little one. The calves are getting so much bigger, but they are obviously still calves. Okay, we're gonna drive into the sun, I think, and boil a little bit more. But for now, we're gonna send you guys over to Trishala in Okokoyo.
It probably is in the sun, but in my office, my hands and feet are very cold. So some sun sounds great. Although I must say it looks like Lauren is getting cooked on that side. It was so lovely to see that butterfly land on Lauren's hand. Lifetime achievement for her. She loves butterflies. And you could see how excited she was. She's always wanted one to come and land on her. When I was very little, I think I had a pet butterfly. The key word here is think, because I was not sure if there was something else going on with this butterfly and it just happened to end up in my room. But I could put it on my shoulder and walk around the house with it, and it would fly about and stuff, and then after about 3 or 4 days it left. I was devastated, obviously. But it was stunning, much like the images we're looking at here. Nobody else has come down. Again, just the usual suspects. Unfortunately, no elephants, but luckily there have been elephants at Madikwe, so you've been getting your elephant fill. Let's have a look on this side. Nothing. So the last few days we were also getting some impala and some kudu coming down. Oh, we've got a zebra having a nice little bath here. Oh yes, you've dunked right in. Pool party indeed. Look at that zebra. Oh, this is awesome. I'm can safely say that I've not seen a zebra this much in the water here before. And the only other time you see this kind of image of a zebra is if you look at them crossing a river, or, you know, the Mara crossing. That's the only time you'd see that. Oh, bit of a panic. But the zebra that's in the water doesn't seem to mind. Did definitely react, but I guess the pull of the nice cool water was greater than the panic. Well, not anymore. Everyone's running off now. It's a little bit shaky. I wonder if it's a bit windy there, so let's pull out a little bit. Now, zebras can swim. We were, I can't remember when it was, but we were having a discussion about animals and swimming. think it was, I can't remember when it was actually. Ralph had started it. He was talking about the giraffe and he had a question about whether the giraffe is able to swim. And while technically it can, it will drown very soon because of its center of gravity and the weight of its neck, which would tip it forward. But zebra, they can definitely swim, along with most other four-legged animals. Natural swimmers. Now, this kind of heat, okay, there's a couple more clouds forming above, which is nice. But it seems especially warm here today. It's the same temperature, but something about the way that the ground looks and the animals moving towards the waterhole kind of makes it feel like it's a little bit warmer, hotter, and the sun really looks like it's beating down. So that zebra that's been soaking in the water, it would have brought such relief, such a cooling effect. But unfortunately, it'll probably evaporate quite quickly. By evaporating, it's going to cool the zebra down as well. Call that evaporative cooling. So that's when, if water is on you, that water is drawing out heat from the body of the zebra. And as it evaporates, it's pulling that heat away from the body. That's how you get that really nice wind chill. So if there's water on an animal, it's going to keep it cool while the water is beginning to evaporate. But once the water has completely evaporated and it is dry again, it is going to be hot. And we'll probably have to make another visit down to the pan. Yay, we've got some gemsbok, one gemsbok down as well. Are you going to go for a swim, buddy? I love it when they do this. Hi, Starbuck. I really like that name. You'd like to know, why do gemsbok always walk into the water to drink? It's not only gemsbok that do it. Springbok have been doing it as well, and so have the zebra. So it's not something that is specific to a particular species. It just seems to be a feature of what happens at this waterhole. There's a few reasons I think that that's happening. One, it could be the structure of this waterhole, the geology. There might be rocks towards the edges that make it difficult for an animal to put their head down to drink while still being stable. So that's number one. Number two, if they walk into the water, it offers them some cooling on the legs and the underbelly, which is obviously very helpful in this kind of arid and semi-arid environment. And the only reason they can do those things in the first place is because they know and have learned that there aren't any predators in this water. Still, remember, they're going to be skittish. It's just a natural instinct. It's a natural reaction to being around water. But they have learned to some extent that there are no predators in this water. So that allows them to walk further in to have a drink and to get that additional advantage of getting nice and cool. But I think the main reason is the geology of this water's edge, the structure of this water's edge. If we look towards just where it appears that the pipe comes in, where this gets pumped, see there's some significant rocks there. That would make the edge quite uneven and quite difficult and unstable for any animal that's going to be, remember, tipping some of its weight forward. So to avoid the dreaded face plant into the waterhole, it makes a lot more sense to walk in. And you see it with almost every animal that comes to drink at this pan or at this waterhole, except for elephants and for giraffe. And that makes sense because a giraffe can stand further back and pop its head forward, and an elephant can just stretch its trunk out. So there's no need to stand right at the edge of the water like most antelopes will have to. So it's not something specific to a species, it's just a function of the structure of this waterhole. But it's a really good question. And it's an excellent observation because if this is, say, the only exposure someone has to wildlife, looking at this image right now, and we see that animals come down to drink here and they always walk in, then that could be all that someone knows, and we can make assumptions that all the species do this because that's how animals drink water. So it's excellent to ask a question like that, because it just reminds us that it's not a species-specific trait or behavior, it's a function of the waterhole. I'm not even sure that Gemsbok drank very much. Kind of looked like it just went in to have an underbelly soak, which sounds great. Remember that the fur and the skin on the belly of any animal is a little thinner than the rest. For some animals, a lot thinner. If you can think about your pets, if you have any, if you think about that nice puppy tummy, very little fur, still some fur, but little fur, and the skin is quite thin. That allows for good cooling. And also, that part of an animal is barely exposed to the sun, so it doesn't need a lot of protection. So the skin there can afford to be a little bit thinner. It seems that there's a mass exodus now. Everyone is leaving. Oh well, you know how it comes in waves. And I'll be sitting here and waiting for the next wave. Let me send you back over to Ralph, see what's going on at Kariqa.
Well, everyone, there is quite a few animals down here next to the waterhole, and it's mainly zebras. There's quite a few giraffe there in the background, and in true typical Eastern Cape fashion, a little while ago I was absolutely boiling, not even half an hour ago, and currently the clouds have come over again and it almost feels like it wants to rain once more. So that's what we say, 4 seasons in one day here in these particular parts, and it's ringing true today in particular. So anyway, the animals have made their way down for a drink because it was hot, but I think once they've quenched their thirst, that might be it. So we hopefully just enjoy it while it lasts, because then they might head off towards the thickets and actually seek shelter. It might rain a bit later, who knows. But we've got a nice big group of giraffe there in the background. Some of them have come down to drink, others just mingling about. As you can see, that one now on the left looks like it wants to go for a drink. And these guys do seem to like to move together. So everybody is getting their bit and just enjoying this sort of changing weather that we've been experiencing. It's quite incredible. You've got to have, this morning I came out with jackets and all sorts, and then stripped them all off, and now I'm starting to put them all back on again. Now, just for anyone that didn't know, we're talking about Wild Earth's birthday and there will be a birthday celebration on the 27th of April. And you can send in any of your videos to birthday@wildearth.tv. As we continue on watching these guys just doing their thing, and the two best fly swat tails in the business, giraffe and zebra, together here next to the Scotia Dam. Beautiful Scotia tree there in the middle. That's why it's called as such, and there are quite a few in this particular area as well. That's one of the bigger ones that you will see. They don't get big like your typical weeping boerbien that you may find in the Lowveld. See how they go at each other once again. Who's going to be the winner? You often think it's going to be the bigger and stronger one, or stronger looking, but I've seen in recent times the smaller ones getting the upper hand. It's like they get on the inside of the other. Oh, there was a double knock. So Elijah, that's a very good question. Generally, giraffe are sort of just over about 4 meters that they get. But I do believe that the tallest giraffe was in Australia. They recorded, I think it's in the Guinness Book of World Records. And I think that one tipped just over 6 meters tall. But that's generally, I would say, between 4 and 5 meters. 6 being excessive and obviously the record. But these ones that we're looking that are fighting here, they're probably just under 4 meters. So I'd say around 3.5, the smaller one, maybe a little bit 3.8 or so, the taller one. Somewhere in that region. So if you think as well, the tallest person that you've ever seen, normally around 2 meters. 2 meters is the height of a door. And well, sometimes it can be just a little bit less than that. Depends on where you live. Generally, you know, where we live here in South Africa, the normal doors are around 2 meters. And if you have a very tall person come to your house, it does make everybody else look tiny. So 2 meters, if you then put that person, double him in size, it's extremely tall. So you must think with these giraffes that we're looking at now, if you had to walk near to them, I am just over 6 foot, 6'2". So that's just over it's around about 1.7, 1.8 meters, I think. And I would probably be at around about their armpit. So if you think then that they will be more than twice my height up into the head. It's incredible. It's difficult to actually understand how big these animals are until you're on the ground and you walk or you're near to them. That's why going out on trails always gives you a completely different perspective of the animals. When you sit on the back of a vehicle, you've got the height advantage and you don't realize how big the animals are. As soon as you get out on foot, all of a sudden everything is a lot bigger. And even the likes of warthogs suddenly seem much bigger than what you thought, especially when you get up close to them. And you think they're these tiny little animals, but they're not tiny at all. Some of them are rather large when I speak of warthogs. And if you have a warthog coming out of a burrow next to you, then you'll really know how big they are, because they can be quite scary. Nothing to worry about though, generally, with giraffe out on foot. They're pretty timid, and I've never seen any kind of aggression whatsoever towards people that are walking, and you mostly find that they run away. You'll see them being very concerned about these two-legged animals. I think they've evolved to understand that we are super predators, and so they treat us as such. Zoe, that is a very good question, because they have extreme amounts of pressure to go through to get the blood from the heart up to the head. And as a result, they've actually got a massive heart. So I'm not quite sure on the exact pound of pressure, but it is a lot. And they actually have also adapted legs. So they've got very tight skin, and because of that, it does assist with this sort of movement of blood within that, so that the blood does reach the extremities. And they also have special valves in their neck that virtually close when they put their head down, because you can imagine if the heart is pumping the blood up to the head with that extreme amount of pressure, if it puts its head down, and as you might feel when you hang upside down, you do start feeling your head filling up with blood, and it does give you a sort of headache if you're not used to it. And so with the giraffe, obviously this is compounded, and so they do need to have adaptations to allow for their head being dropped when they go for water, and not that their head doesn't explode when they do that. So they actually alleviate or relieve the pressure when they put their heads down by slowing the blood to the brain. and very important because they do need to spend quite an amount of time with their heads down drinking to get, to satisfy their thirst, especially if it's been a hot day. And if they had to do that without these adaptations, you'd see a lot of giraffes' heads popping when they go down to drink. Now these two seem to have calmed down a little bit. They don't seem to be fighting with the kind of energy that they were a minute ago. Forgotten about what they were arguing for, or saving it for round two. I think this is an ongoing saga between these two. So you see now the little one's just barging into the backside of the bigger one. And with it having rained, you can see now their coats are just immaculate. You can actually see that they've got wet backs. It's a little bit darker than usual. You see that very clear white backs of the ears of the one on the top right as they're looking down into the river line there. So Jack, we generally say the rule of thumb in the bush is it's normally around a year with most of these sort of predominant sort of plains animals. But with giraffe, they'll go a little bit longer than that. So you'll see them around the mother for up to and probably just a little bit more than a year. And then they can start to move on their own. But they can also stick around with the group as well. This isn't your sort of traditional grouping with giraffes. They seem to just move with whoever comes along. They don't have any real type of group structure or social framework. Giraffe, just easygoing. They'll move and groove. As other giraffe come in, they might move off with them. It depends on where they are and how many giraffe are around, etc. But the little ones, up to about a year, maybe a little bit more, maybe a year and a half sometimes. It depends. Some will be earlier, some will be later, and then they'll move off and do their own thing. But generally moving around with other giraffe. You can find the big older bulls sometimes being completely on their own, and in places like in Damaraland in Namibia with those Angolan giraffe or the Damara giraffe, you often find them solitary. But that's, as I say, it's all geographically sort of isolated, or the location where the animals are. In the Kruger National Park, you find them in groups as well. In smaller reserves where there is only a small amount of giraffe, you might find them sticking together as one group or almost as a herd and then moving together quite regularly. It just all depends on where they are and who they are. Each giraffe is more, individual. So some might like to be around other giraffe more than others. These two, I think, just enjoying battering each other. Is he grimacing with a Fleming grimace? I'm not quite sure what that upward head stance is or accomplishing. Maybe it's a kind of dominance display. They both seem to be doing it every now and then. So, and as the Latin name suggests, the camelopardus. So it's the camel with leopard print and that's as a result of their coat, which does have a resemblance of a leopard. And so that's why the genus is called as such, the leopard-dressed camel. So Sol, those Angolan or Damara giraffe are different to the southern giraffe in that they're quite a bit smaller, and I've also found that their coats are quite a bit darker, but not that not like you would expect these ones going black. It's just more of a deeper red that I see on the Angolan giraffe. They're a little bit smaller, and they also seem to have much thicker ankles and feet, because they walk around in the rocks and in the desert. So their legs need to be very strong to be able to do that. Otherwise, they would very quickly break their legs and their feet. Now, remember, when I say feet, it's because most of the foot is raised. It's only their toes that are on the ground. So that first joint is actually the ankle. And so the heel is right up off the ground. And that part is most vulnerable to rocks. And if you had to put these southern giraffe into that terrain where the Angolan giraffe survive and eke out a living, they would very quickly break their legs, especially if pursued by a predator and they had to run at full tilt. You would find a lot of mortalities around broken bones, and them not being able to walk properly and move the massive distances required in that particular environment to both feed and to drink. And so with also a smaller body, it means that they don't require as much calories or food as well as water. So it's quite similar to all the animals that you do find in the desert. They need to be more water efficient. And you find their bodies have then evolved similarly, that they're a lot smaller. You might find them having potentially bigger feet to be able to walk in sand and rocky terrain. And so, yeah, and then you also find their social structure. You find them more solitary in smaller groups, and really just being able to survive in a much harsher environment. Here, it is extremely lush. There's nothing that these giraffe want for. There is so much food. It's extremely nutritious. There's year-round water availability, and they don't need to walk far for it. So you could say that these giraffe live in the lap of luxury in comparison to those Angolan giraffe that really need to eke out a living, and they become pretty much hardcore giraffe, that they live in extreme environment. So you can imagine then just the adaptations, and if they were as big as these giraffes, they would obviously have to eat more, they would have to drink more, and their legs have to sustain a bigger body, so they'd have to have bigger muscles, etc. So yeah, it doesn't pay to be as big in a desert type environment. It pays to be smaller, so that it's easier to transport yourself to obtain your requirements to survive. Also, I've noticed in the desert with those Damara giraffe, you don't find them fighting as much. There's obviously less males to fight with, and less females to fight for. It seems like, we often see it with the desert elephants as well, less aggressive. Where there's big populations of elephants, they're more aggressive towards each other. They push over more trees. And I just find, and it seems like it goes across even into the people. Where you have less people, people are a lot more friendly. So, Zachary, I think you're asking about the desert elephants and their adaptations to the harsh environment. So, just leading on from the giraffe, very similar with the desert elephants. The desert elephants, they seem like they are taller than your average elephants, remembering that desert elephants are not a different species. They're also Loxodonta africana. The Etosha elephants often escape the park, and they move into the areas where the desert elephants are, and they do mingle and breed amongst each other, and it's viable offspring, and there's not any real difference in the animals themselves. The real adaptations come where those elephants are able to go for up to sometimes even 10 days without water, where your average elephants need to drink, pretty much every day. They could probably go for a day or two without drinking, but then they would be, maxing out. So those desert elephants, they can sustain themselves for longer with less water. And there is, I also have seen some indication of an adaptation where the elephants in the desert are actually able to take water out of their throat region. I'm not sure if it's a gullet or what. And they're actually able to store water there for times when it's extremely hot, and then they can actually extract it and spray that water behind their ears. And I've actually seen them do this, but not sure what exactly that adaptation is in the throat region that enables them to do that, but that's one of the things that they're able to do. They seem to look taller, but they're not. They're actually smaller than the Etosha elephants, for instance, but it's just that they've got a smaller body that makes their legs look longer, and this is obviously an adaptation to allow them to, as with the Damara giraffe, that they don't need as much calories to sustain themselves. So it all just depends on those particular instances, but it's all around water efficiency and food availability. So this giraffe looks like it might want to mount the other one. And we often get, I find it amusing when I see people finding it very amusing when you see dogs or cats, whether it's and same sex, mounting the same sex. And people often think that they're trying to mate, or that they're confused, or they're doing something stupid. It's we just don't understand that body language. When animals do that, it's dominance. It's not anything sexual. It's really a dominance display. So if dogs are playing and suddenly a female starts humping a male on the ground, it's that she's a dominant, or she's trying to be dominant, or there's some kind of dominant display within that. But it's nothing sexual. It's more of a sort of a display within that play, but it can come through in their behavior when they continue, sort of just on a day-to-day. But it's not what we think, or not generally what people think when animals do that. So when you see two bulls like this, they're fighting, and then the one starts to mount the other one, it's that it's trying to dominate it. It's not that it is trying to mate with it. And that's the same with dogs and cats, etc. It's all about that kind of body language, rather than what we like to head towards the gutter with. And we just don't understand it. And that's where I find it amusing when people think it is that. when in fact it's animals, sort of working their whole little structure out. And sometimes females can be dominant over males, and they'll show it by doing things like humping a male without obviously mating. So yeah, very interesting, some of the behavior that you do see from animals, and sometimes we're very close-minded in the way that we interpret it, and sometimes there's a lot more to it than we realize. And ethology is probably my biggest interest, watching animals and why they do things, etc. So the more you watch animals, the more I think you can learn about them, but the more you can also learn about yourself, especially around body language. And that's the biggest thing when you're out on foot and you do trails. And when you spend hundreds or thousands of hours on foot in dangerous game country, you start realizing that the body language is the most important language that you can speak in the bush. And animals understand it, they see it, and they react to it. And so it's not what you say, it's what you do. And none more so than with giraffe, because giraffe don't say a thing, and it's all about what they do. Anyway, just to let you know as well, if you've missed any of the shows, whether it be Sunrise Safari, Sunset Safari, or like what we're doing here with Escape to Nature, you can catch up on the best bits or the highlights by jumping onto the website or accessing it on the Wild Earth app. And it will have all the best parts of what happened during the show. So the editing team, they'll be hard at work after the show putting together those best bits, and then you're welcome to jump on and check it out and catch up.
Wild Earth's mission is an expensive one, but we know that our live experience is important to so many people that cannot afford to pay for it. We have added a donate button to our website. By donating, you are directly helping us share our free nature experiences with the world. We want Wild Earth to reach children, budding conservationists, and the less fortunate. A little money goes a long way. You can make a difference to someone today.
And it seems like the body language of these two now has landed up in a diffusal. They've both been trying to dominate each other, but it doesn't seem like there's any winner. So I think they've just given up a little bit, or couldn't be bothered anymore. But I think that little challenge is going to continue. They seem to be still pretty young. There's another one that's decided it's time for a little snooze. Just doing some ruminating there. And with a high prevalence of lions, you won't generally see giraffe doing this. They'll sleep on the legs. Lie down, very easy to catch a giraffe if you're a lion in this position. So luckily for these guys, there's not lions on this side of the reserve. Because, yeah, it would probably take between 3 and 5 seconds to be able to stand up. Hi Jim, you're very welcome. It's just nice to be on a show like this where we can chat about these kinds of things and we can learn from wildlife. And my biggest lessons in my life have come from wildlife and that in specific in body language. And whenever I get into heated situations with people, I try to remember, and I almost put myself standing in front of an elephant, and what does the elephant need from me, or what do I need from the situation, and then I try to present myself in the correct fashion. And I think that's gotten me pretty far, but it's a nice lesson to learn, and I think wildlife has so many lessons to teach us that if we just keep watching them, we can learn a lot about ourselves. And it's so simplistic sometimes extremely complicated, but the more we watch, the more we learn. And so we're slowly heading towards the end of the show. So as always, we've got to thank the stars, the wildlife, and the animals out here. And yeah, don't forget that there will be the sunset safari a little bit later on, and of course tomorrow then we'll do it all again with the sunrise safari, escape to nature, and sunset. So it just carries on. So thanks to all the guys out at the different locations, all the naturalists. I think it's probably been a hot one. I've had hot and cold, but it's all good. The cam ops, the directors and the tech guys, everybody behind the scenes making these pictures possible. And of course to you, the viewers. That's it for now from me, folks. My name's Ralph Kirsten. Ciao.